A silent battle is playing out behind the scenes at Eagles training camp, my friend. And it could end with a trade that is going to catch a lot of people off guard. The backup quarterback position in Philadelphia has turned into a real competition, and what started as an apparently settled hierarchy has become something far less predictable than anyone expected. And now, with an insider pointing to what a realistic return would look like in a deal involving this player, the situation has gotten even more interesting, because the Eagles may be on the verge of turning a smart profit on a developmental project that has naturally reached its ceiling at the NovaCare Complex. The backup battle, the situation of another team that desperately needs a quarterback, and the return Howie Roseman could get in this trade, it is all on the table. If the Eagles are your team, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. This offseason keeps on delivering. Heading into training camp, the Eagles had an apparently clear hierarchy behind Jalen Hurts. The plan seemed straightforward. A young quarterback who had spent the last few years being developed by the franchise would naturally step into the backup role, the product of years of investment and patience. But OTAs and mandatory minicamp changed the map. An experienced veteran arrived and, in the words of those who followed the practices closely, challenged that hierarchy in a very real and visible way. Some interpret this as a sign that the younger quarterback was simply outplayed on the field. Others see something different, a signal that the franchise is preparing to move him on. The name at the center of all of this is Tanner McKee, and according to insider Jeff Kerr of Sports Illustrated, the Arizona Cardinals could be the destination. To understand why this scenario makes sense, you first have to look at Arizona's situation. The Cardinals entered the offseason with a real problem at the quarterback position. Jacoby Brissett is in a contract standoff with the franchise, making his future uncertain. Gardner Minshew is still on the roster, but his entire career has been defined by inconsistency. And Eagles fans know that history well, since Minshew spent time as a backup in Philadelphia. And then there is Carson Beck, the franchise's rookie quarterback, described as a polarizing prospect, a player with potential who carries all the natural uncertainty of a first-year player who still needs to prove himself at the professional level. Arizona is clearly a team that needs quarterback options, and it needs them now. That is precisely the context in which McKee would fit as an attractive piece for the Cardinals. He is not a star, but he is not a quarterback without value either. He has the physical tools, has been inside a real NFL system, and has already shown on the field that he can compete at the professional level. For a team like Arizona, which wants to protect its young starter and develop the position over time, a quarterback like McKee offers something Minshew cannot guarantee: reliability within a structured system, without the weight of excessive expectations. If the franchise believes in McKee's development as a legitimate complement to Beck, the logic behind the trade is there. And what would the Eagles get in return? According to Jeff Kerr, a fourth-round pick would be the realistic return in this negotiation. It is not the kind of trade that is going to dominate headlines for weeks. It is not a big name, not an immediate impact player. But it is a trade that makes complete sense when you look at the numbers. The Eagles selected McKee in the 6th round of the draft, with the 188th overall pick out of Stanford. Turning a 6th-round pick into a 4th-round pick after years of development is exactly the kind of return on investment that defines efficient general manager work. Roseman did not turn McKee into a star, but he could turn him into more valuable draft capital than what was originally spent to bring him in. To understand how this project reached this point, you have to revisit McKee's career arc with the Eagles. In 2023, his rookie season, he posted no statistics. He was kept protected, in development, learning the system from a distance. It was in 2024 that the picture changed. McKee appeared in 2 games, including a complete game that the Eagles won. The numbers: 30 completions, 66.7% completion rate, 323 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. It was a performance that generated real excitement. That showing raised McKee's market value significantly, and for a period, there was a genuine sense that the Eagles had found a quality backup in a late-round draft pick. But 2025 was a different chapter. McKee appeared in 4 games throughout the season, but made just one start, the final game of the regular season, against the Washington Commanders. And that performance did not carry the same shine as the year before. 55.8% completion rate, 274 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. The bitter taste of that final game lingered. The market value that had risen came back down. and the narrative around McKee as a promising quarterback started being questioned more consistently by the analysts who follow the roster closely. That is where Andy Dalton comes in. The veteran arrived with the Eagles and, throughout OTAs and minicamp practices, challenged McKee in a visible and concrete way. Dalton has experience, knows the game at a deep level, and understands how to operate within complex systems, something a backup quarterback needs to demonstrate every single day in practice, regardless of what happens in games. Dalton's arrival did not just create competition, it made McKee expendable in a way that simply did not exist before. When an experienced veteran outperforms a younger developmental player in open practices, the organizational message is clear, and the possibility of a trade moves from speculation to a real conversation. It is worth mentioning an element that Eagles fans will certainly bring up the moment the Cardinals' name appears in this conversation. Josh Sweat, the former Eagle, who spent years as a reliable edge rusher in Philadelphia before heading to Arizona, is a player the green and white faithful still hold in high regard, and the desire to see Sweat return to the city of brotherly love in any trade involving the Cardinals is completely understandable. But Jeff Kerr is clear. That is not what is being discussed here. The realistic proposal is McKee for a fourth-round pick, and Sweat, in this specific context, is not part of the equation. There is a bigger strategic layer here that deserves attention. The Eagles are one of the organizations that values its backup quarterbacks more than most. The franchise understands that having a competent backup is not a luxury, it is insurance. Jalen Hurts is the centerpiece of everything, but a team that intends to compete for a Super Bowl needs adequate answers in case something happens to the starter. If Dalton takes over the backup role and McKee becomes the third quarterback, his quality practice reps disappear. A quarterback who never gets quality repetitions in practice does not develop and does not add real value to the roster. In that scenario, trading McKee while he still has market value, even if reduced from his 2024 peak, is the rational decision. The full picture that emerges from this situation is as follows. The Eagles have a backup quarterback who has reached the natural limit of his developmental cycle with the franchise, a veteran who made that cycle obsolete before training camp even started, and a team on the other side of the country that genuinely needs options at the most important position in football. A fourth-round pick is not going to change the direction of the Eagles' season, but it will add a draft asset to an organization that thinks systematically about the future. Roseman bought in the 6th round, developed for 3 years, and could sell in the 4th. That is smart roster management, even if it lacks glamour. Is this trade going to happen before training camp? And do you think a 4th-round pick is a fair return for what McKee represents as a quarterback project? Drop your opinion in the comments. I want to know whether you would move him or keep the competition with Dalton alive. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later with the latest Eagles news.